What's up, guys? Midwestern RC. We got another micro crawler. All right, it's an AX24 made by Axial. And is it worthy? Is it fun? Is it good? Does it perform well? Well, during this series, we are going to be talking about just that. I do not think this thing from the factory, as is box stock, is going to perform good whatsoever at all for many reasons, which we're going to get right into. So, the AX24, which I already unboxed it and everything, it's just like, I mean, it's like, what's that song by the Party Rockers? Like, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Like, the shocks are way too bouncy. I think aftermarket shocks are gonna fix this thing a lot. I personally think the tires are too big for something that has this much articulation. I think in the future, I'm going to be changing how much this thing can articulate. I am going to be lessening the amount of travel in the shocks. Now, what do I have sitting right here? I have a box of spare SCX24 parts, performance parts, mind you, and some stock parts. Like I have a whole front axle right here. You see that? With a ton of brass. And let's take a look real quick. And yeah, man, it literally looks like I'm just gonna be able to take off the front axle and then just pop this thing right in. And it has the brass diff cover, the brass steering knuckles, the brass wheel weights, whatever this cylindrical thing is, and the Trio steering links so it doesn't bind and push into each other. We're gonna be putting all that stuff on eventually in this series. This is part one. This is the initial thoughts. Now, my initial thoughts, you know, I like the idea that they put a 24th scale with the four-wheel steering option available. So with the AX24, you have front steer, and then you hit the A button, and then you have crab walk steer, where both axles will turn the appropriate way per whatever way you're turning the wheel. You hit it down to B, back to front steer, you hit it to B again, and then it goes into full-blown four-wheel steering. Now, what are the benefits of four-wheel steering? It's you can cut such a tiny little circle. The turning radius, that's the word I was looking for, is just crazy. So now another thing that I'm noticing already, we're gonna turn the tires to the front, and then we're gonna start giving it a little gas. See how the body is leaning like that? I don't like that, man. You want to keep the center of gravity nice and low. You want to keep things even. You want to keep things nice and balanced. And that's not really balance. Anytime you have a four-wheel steering rig, a lot of the getting used to it and like getting to enjoy it the right way is just going to be exposure. Like my incredible 1/10 scale Axial Capra, which I don't call this thing a four-wheel steering rig. I call it a rear steer rig because I can turn these wheels and then I can control the rear wheels, the rear axle separately. So I can go into four-wheel steering mode and then I can go into crab mode. And then while I'm going into crab mode, I can control the rear however I want and however I deem necessary for the terrain that I'm crawling on. And trust me, I have a lot of drive time with that crawler, with my four-wheel steering crawler. And what I'm getting at is I just think switching between, okay, crab walk, okay, turn off crab walk, all right, four-wheel steer. There's gonna be certain obstacles when you're gonna want crab walk on. Now think about it this way. I'm gonna try to hold the truck up. I'm gonna put it in normal. And let's say you're on flat ground. The back tires, right here where my pinky's touching, the back tires are pushing the rig forward. The front tires are trying to push it this way. Now, when you turn four-wheel steering on, it's going to pivot the truck basically like that. Now, when it's pivoting the truck like this, you're actually losing grip because the entire truck is almost like it's scrubbing in one spot, if that makes sense. So if you're on any bit of an angle, like a side hill, an incline or a decline or something like that, it could actually cause you to lose your line, lose your traction, and then fall over on your face. Now, why I like the crab, which I just switched to on the remote, is because if I'm in normal mode and I want the truck to go this way, right? Believe it or not, you put it in crab, and now you have the back tires pushing the rig this way. Then at some point you're gonna be able to be like, okay, turn that off, and then get back to your line. Like, let's take a 6x6 for example. Why is the turning radius on a 6x6 so awful? So the back tires, 4 tires, are trying to push this thing forward. You have the front tires pointing to the right, and everything's trying to push it forward, so you're not going to get that good of a turning angle. So that's what I'm trying to make a quick little lesson on how to utilize 4-wheel steering to your best advantage. Now, as far as the AX24 goes, I think it's a good starter car. I think it's going to bring a lot of good variety to microcrawling just because it's another option. I don't care if it's scale or not. That's just me. If you're all about scale, this is not for you, clearly. So things we're going to be doing in the future, it's got these cute little rock lights. I'm going to be taking them off. I'm just not a fan of rock lights. If you are, great. Now, I have a set of Trio bead locks. I got the purple ones, right? And this tire compound, it looks similar, right? Because they are the rock lizards. Now, the rock lizards on the AX24 are a larger tire. The rock lizards that I have, which also have the Trio aluminum beadlock, it's a smaller tire. It's going to lower the center of gravity. Now with the Trio wheels, it's going to add weight down low. It's going to be a lower profile tire. So there's going to be some pros and cons about that. The cons are going to be, you're not going to have as much clearance. So you're going to get caught up on the axles. You're going to get caught up on the skid plate more often. Now, generally, if you have a decent amount of weight, which even just the beadlock metal wheels are generally more than enough. Think about it this way. So we have this tire right here, just like that. Now we're gonna have brass on the axles. We're gonna have the weight of the vehicle and everything. It's gonna smush down more. Now when it's smushing down more, what's happening is that there's more of a contact patch. So whatever you're trying to crawl on, you're gonna get more grip. So a lot of people are like, oh, I love brass. I add brass to all my rigs because it keeps the center of gravity nice and low. But if you've never considered that, think about it. You're also increasing the contact patch of all 4 tires and you're getting more grip. And crawling, a lot of it is about grip. So on to the next thing. I like that you can use a lot of the SCX24 parts. Like I'm basically going to put all the brass that I had on here. I had a Furatech ESC lying around. I have one of the bigger motors too I'm going to be putting in here because when you put all the brass on this, that tiny little Dynamite 88 turn motor, it's not going to handle it. It's going to burn up. Get one of the brush motors. They're like $10 on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. But I'm going to try to put the Furatech ESC in here. I'm going to try to put the bigger motor in here. I'm going to try to brass it out. I'm going to test the Rock Lizards out, which are pretty good tires. I'm going to test the Proline Hyrax out on my SCX24, which are even smaller than the Rock Lizards. So we should be able to get a much lower center of gravity, and this thing is going to perform a lot better. Now here's my gripe about what Axial did with this car. This is going to be very controversial. I'm probably going to offend some people. I don't mean to, but it's facts. It's a well-written article on the internet. I'm going to put a link in the description below. It's actually on Axial's website about how too much articulation is not ideal for competitions, and they list why. Now, if you don't like reading, I wrote down a few of the lines from the article if you don't want to read the article for yourself, or I'm hoping that I read these off to you and then you're going to be like, oh, I should actually go read that because I want to learn how to make my rig better, because regardless of if I do competitions or not, I want my car to perform better. So the first line out of their article, which granted was written in 2010, but without further ado, there are very few, if any, situations where more suspension travel is better. Here's another line from that same article talking about the pros and cons of articulation. When in actuality, limited suspension travel is probably better in almost every situation you encounter. So that's why I'm going to be taking a set of stock SCX24 shocks, which I feel like most of you that are already into the hobby probably have lying around, and I'm going to see if they fit on here. If they do, great, because I already know that this thing will most likely perform better. That will probably be part 4 or part 5 of this series. So please subscribe right now, like this video so the algorithm gets boosted, so my channel gets better, so we can get this information out there. Let's fix this car together. Let's make it perform better. I think it has a ton of potential, but in stock form, I think the tires are a little too big. I don't think that it has enough weight down low, which you really don't see brass stock on many cars. I know the servos are going to burn out. We're going to be doing a lot of free mods. I do expect to try to use some rubber bands in the future to try to get so the articulation doesn't happen a ton. Now, why would you try to limit your articulation, do you say? One of the craziest mods I've done on my Capra is, if you can see this band right here, it's like an elastic band. This is my friend Dustin from D's company. He sells shock bands. So what they do is not only do they limit the articulation, but they allow the truck to fully articulate like it can. But when the truck is wanting to articulate, the band will kind of keep the whole truck squatted down and hugging the terrain. So therefore, your center of gravity is super low. This thing can damn near crawl upside down. It is crazy what I can do with this thing. And that's my goal for the XC1, the AX24. We're also going to be trying to figure out a way if I can bind it to a DX5C, or if I can throw a totally different receiver at it and then bind it to my Capra remote, so we can control that rear axle individually. Because trust me on this, when you can control the rear tires, and once you learn how to drive a 4-wheel steering rig the right way, which takes practice, it's not something where you're just gonna get it. It's gonna be frustrating. You're gonna go out, you're gonna suck, but you're gonna keep practicing with it. You're gonna get better at it. That's the fun part. It's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the fun of learning how to be better, how to get better with it. What are my initial thoughts in a nutshell? I think bone stock, these things are awful. I don't think they're good at all. I took it around on my course. I didn't really have too much fun. But again, what I think Axial did was they provided what is going to impress a lot of people that are new to the hobby, that buy it straight out of the box. And you're going to be able to do all these cool things. You're going to be able to watch this little machine do all this awesome stuff. And then you're going to start realizing, like, oh, well, why does my truck keep flipping over? Why is my steering servo burning out? Why is it when I'm turning the wheels this way, they're only staying right here? Stick around for part 2. We're going to take this out on the course, box stock. We're going to run it. And then part 3, which is going to be a separate video, I'm going to give you my afterthoughts on what I was surprised with, what I wasn't surprised with. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more. I'm not surprised that this thing didn't do this or didn't do that. And I actually do hope that there are some, wow, I'm surprised it did that, or wow, I'm surprised it did this. And I'm also going to be discussing what I plan on doing in terms of free mods, because I want to optimize this for you guys, and I want to do some cheap mods as well. I know Amazon has a lot of good tire options for SCX24s. There's a lot of companies out there that have really affordable options. That is one of the best things about mini crawlers, is how much fun you can have with them. So this is my first thoughts. We're gonna go to part 2 now. We're gonna see if I like this thing or not.